Greetings everyone and welcome back to another build video. Today I have a free-to-play build for you for the Fleet Oberth. If you watched my top 4 fleet ships video, you'll know this was my choice for the fleet ship with temporal seating. There's an argument to be made that the Lucari science vessel from the Dranur colony is a better fleet ship with temporal seating, but you need a tier 5 colony for that. And I know not everyone has that, so I've decided to go with the Oberth, which is still a pretty good ship. I have a pretty straightforward side torp build for you here today, following all of my usual free-to-play rules, which means nothing that ever came out of a lockbox, nothing that ever came from the C store, the Lobby store, or anything that involves premium currency in any way. This is only things you can get by playing the game, so mission rewards, dilithium store, reputations, and fleets, basically. This video is in a playlist. If you check that playlist, the first video has a video called the Free-to-Play Mega Guide, which goes over this stuff in more detail. But without further ado, let's go ahead and start looking at the build in more detail. Okay, first up, we're going to take a look on the left at the weapons and decks set. So we have the pretty standard 3 torpedoes for a side torp build. The gravimetric photon torpedo, which is from the 8472 reputation. It is a good EPG torpedo that makes gravity well type anomalies, and we've focused on stacking EPG and control expertise on this build. The next torpedo is the neutronic torpedo from the Delta reputation, and it's a very good torpedo for EPG, and it also is a good torpedo on spread, which we are using torpedo spread on this build. Finally, we have the particle emission plasma torpedo, which comes from the crafting system, and it's also a very strong EPG torpedo. For our deflector, I'm using the colony deflector as normal. There are some choices here. You could use the Bajoran one, which is notorious for having a high EPG rollable on it, but this one gives crit chance and severity, and you can re-roll it for a decent amount of control expertise, which is something else I wanted on the build. Secondary deflector is just a crafted deteriorating deflector. Unfortunately, any other kind of deflector like the inhibiting is just not really good enough. They should buff those up. So you're definitely going to want to use a deteriorating deflector of some kind. For the impulse engine, I have the competitive prevailing engine, which is pretty typical. That's because speed is king, and this is by far the best impulse engine for speed, which is why you see it on every build. For the warp core and shields, I'm using the temporal defense 2-piece from the temporal defense reputation, and this gives a Cat 1 damage boost as a passive. For the weapons, you don't normally want to have multiple of the same kinds of mine because they will hit a shared entity cap. However, these are all 8472 reputation store torpedoes, the biomolecular ones, and they have a radiation dot that they can proc, and they also have radius mods that you can put on them, which is something that people are playing around with right now, so I wanted to give that a go. But pretty much any of the popular mines that you've seen are stuff that you could put on here. But since they do have a radiation proc and we have some radiation buffs on the build, I thought these would be nice to use. If you look over to the right, you'll see the consoles. In the engineering, I have the ordnance accelerator from the Gamma Rep. This is giving us shared mine recharge time. Then we have the ferrofluid console from the Terran Rep, which is giving us shared torpedo cooldown time. Then we have the assimilated module from the Omega Rep, which is giving us crit chance, severity, and control expertise. Then we have the particle accelerator from the Nukara Rep, which is giving us aux power and EPG. For the science consoles, I have 4 consoles from the Fleet Research Lab. These are the particle focusers. They're giving us EPG and control expertise each as passives, and they have an effect that can be triggered. It has a 25% chance to trigger when using an exotic damage bridge officer ability that will give you some Cat 2 exotic damage boost. Then on the far right of the science consoles, we have the temporal disengagement suite from the mission Butterfly, and this is giving us some max aux power as well as crit chance and severity for having our aux power up, which we're going to do for a science build. You always want to have max aux power on an EPG build. For the tactical consoles, I have the Bioneural Gel Pack, which is also from the Delta reputation, and it's maybe a bit of a controversial choice, but it gives us a 2-piece with a neutronic torpedo, which is going to give us some a Cat 1 radiation boost, as well as some bridge officer cooldown, which is important for us because we don't have some of the more expensive options for science builds, such as improved photonic officer or Boimler. So we're only going to have photonic officer 1 without anything else to juice it up. So having a little bit of bridge officer cooldown on our tactical consoles isn't too bad. Then we have the Fekiri Torment engine, which is a mission reward. You can check the details in the free-to-play mega guide for that. And this gives us all kinds of boosts to physical, kinetic, and radiation. And it gives us a chance to proc the fire dot. So it's just a very good console for us all the way across the board. And now we're going to go ahead and take a look at the traits. For personal space traits in the upper left-hand corner, we've got Innocuous, Fleet Coordinator, Kinetic Precision, Operative. We've got Particle Manipulator, which is one of the really important ones here because that's going to give us some crit chance and severity for our exotic damage abilities. That's based on our EPG. We have over 250 EPG, so we're able to max that out. You need to level up your science R&D to 15 to get that, and I recommend you start working on that right away, whether you're a free-to-play player or not, if you don't have it already. We have the regenerative control synergy and the armor plating traits. Those are also in the free-to-play mega guide video. Those are mission rewards. It's going to give us some damage resistance and hull regeneration. When using control abilities, which we have on the ship, we've got projectile training because we're using 6 projectile weapons. We've got Thrill Seeker for some maneuverability and Bulkhead Technician for some extra hull. These are all pretty standard free traits that you can get. There are much better out there, but we're not allowed to use them according to my restrictions. And then if you look at the upper right hand corner, you'll see the Starship traits. These are all from reputations. We've got Constable for bridge officer cooldown, command frequency, so we can use fleet support more often. We've got predictive algorithms for some accuracy, unconventional tactics. So our brace for impact ability can give us some Cat 2 boost, and going the extra mile, which is going to give us some extra survivability. In the bottom middle, you'll see the space reputation traits. This is one of the reasons it's important to level up your reputations. We've got precision, advanced targeting systems for crit chance and severity, chronocapacitor array to help round out our bridge officer cooldown so we can get that stuff down to a global. Then we've got particle amplifier, which is going to give us some extra EPG, and the Nukara auxiliary offensive, which is going to give us some Cat 2 damage as well. So this is all Cat 2 damage, crit chance, severity, and bridge officer cooldown. Okay, now moving on to the bridge officer stations. I do have 2 slightly controversial things on here that come from the winter event store, but because they are not event rewards, there's no way for you to miss out on them and then have to pay premium currency for them later. You can always earn these for free, and they are perennial, so they are accessible, and those stores are accessible even when the events aren't running, so I decided to include them anyway. Let's start with the Commander Science Temporal Seat. I wanted to include 2 temporal abilities because the temporal mechanic has a builder-spender design. So some abilities will build entropy, others will consume it in order to do extra damage or effect of some kind. I wanted to have 1 builder, 1 spender, because I think that enjoying the build that you're playing is equally as important to its performance, and I wanted to take advantage of that mechanic. So we have the channel deconstruction in the ensign spot, which is going to be our builder, and we have rapid decay 2 in our lieutenant commander spot, and that's going to be our spender. We have photonic officer 1 in our lieutenant spot, which is going to give us bridge officer cooldown, and then for the commander spot we have that gravity well 3, very classic. For our lieutenant tactical, we've got Mine Pattern Dispersal Beta 1 for extra mines, and Torp Spread 1 for extra torpedoes. In the Ensign Universal, we have it as Science, and I have Very Cold in Space, which is from the Winter Event Store. Then for the Lieutenant Commander Engineering, we've got Emergency Power to Engines for Speed. Let It Go 2 in the Lieutenant spot. That's going to be a cold-based debuff. And then we have Emergency Power to Auxiliary 3, which is going to give us extra aux power and EPG. For the Lieutenant Commander Science seat, we have Charged Particle Burst 2, Destabilizing Resonance Beam. You need to do a mission in order to be able to craft that. And then we have Hazard Emitters, which can trigger some stuff and remove debuffs on us, as well as giving us a tiny amount of healing. Okay, now let's take a look at the duty officers. We have 3 10 of 10 Borg duty officers from the Omega Reputation store, and those are going to give us shared torpedo cooldown. Basically, it's a percentage chance, but it's going to help cool down our torpedoes so they can fire more often. The emergency con hologram from the Phoenix store. Whenever we use emergency powered engines, it's going to essentially reset the cooldown on evasive maneuvers, which is going to give us more speed. And remember, speed is king. We've got Boimler. You can get him from the promotions tab as part of the lower decks duty officers. Those are available to everyone at all times. He's not very strong, but on the torpedoes that don't have a firing mode, which is going to be more often on our ship than it is on ships that say have entwined tactical matrices or something, then you're going to get some extra radiation damage from that. And then I have one of the K-13 DOFs, which has the inspiration mechanic, so when we're hitting an ensign ability and we have 5 on the ship, it has a chance to give us some skills in our skill tree just across the board. Most of those skills will get a boost, and so that's just going to give us a little bit of everything. And that is the build I have for you today. Let me know how you enjoy this build format, where it's more of a PowerPoint presentation and I just show you the stuff and walk through it, as opposed to me being in the game and showing it to you that way. There's going to be more free-to-play builds coming in the future. Take care of yourselves as always, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.